Are we all set, Michelle? Okay, great. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Planning and Zoning public hearing for Town of South Windsor for Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. Our first item on our agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I believe we have all our commissioners here, so full commissioners, so that no seating. Our public hearing tonight will go first. We'll hear from the applicant, then we'll hear from town staff, then we'll hear from members of the public. First, those in favor and those against, and then we'll hear from commissioners. So at this time, I'm going to have a reading of the public notice. Commissioner Bonzani.
Thank you. To be published in the Journal Enquirer, Thursday, July 1st, 2021, and Thursday, July 8th, 2021, South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. 1. Application 21-21P, Town of South Windsor Pleasant Valley Elementary School, request for a special exception to table 3.1.1.A and site plan of development for a new 102,150 square foot elementary school on property located at 591, 623, and 647 Ellington Road, RR zone, continued from June 8th, 2021. Number 2, application 21-20P, Davis re-subdivision. Request for a minor subdivision and a special exception to section 3.2.2 of the zoning regulations and site plan approval for one interior lot and one additional frontage lot on property located at 591 Pleasant Valley Road, A-20 zone. To view this meeting, please tune in to channel 16 if your provider is Cox Cable, or channel 6082 if your provider is Frontier, or go to gmedia.swagit.com/live. Copies of the application are on file in the office of the town clerk and the planning department and online at www.southwindsor-ct.gov/planning department/pages/planning and zoning commission -applications. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard by calling into the meeting, and written comments by the public will be received by mail or email to planning zoning comments at southwindsor-ct.gov. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at 860-644-2511, extension 329. Bart Pasiconis, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonzani. Okay, so at this time, I'll call the applicant up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Town Planner Michelle Leip is handing out to the Commission some information that was submitted to the Planning Office yesterday, and I believe was passed along digitally to the Commission. So this is just hard copies of the same information that you have already received and hopefully have had a chance to review. Following up on our previous hearing last month, we do have some responses to comments that we heard that evening. And to kick things off this evening, I'd like to introduce Dr. Kate Carter, Superintendent of Schools.
Good evening, Chairman Pasiconis and Commission members.
If you could maybe get that right in front of you, Kate?
Closer. Is that better?
Yeah,
Way better?
way better.
Okay. I was not in attendance, as you know, at the June 8th Planning and Zoning meeting, as I was at a Board of Education meeting that evening. However, the project team relayed the information they heard that evening and their subsequent concerns about the potential impact to the Pleasant Valley School construction budget, should the items that were discussed informally during the meeting translate to requirements rather than recommendations for consideration. The project team has provided an estimated cost for each of the potential items raised during the June 8th meeting. Mr. Barrett will go over the team's response to these items. My opening comments are meant to address concerns for the bigger picture. Specifically, if everything that was referenced in the meeting were to become a requirement, the project could be over budget by almost $3 million, even before we put a shovel in the ground. Hopefully, this is not the case, and my concerns will ultimately be unwarranted, but too much is at stake not to proactively communicate the detrimental effect this could have not only in the Pleasant Valley School construction project, but district operations as a whole. Please know I am sharing this feedback with you because I know you want this project to be successful, and I hope my concerns are received in the spirit they are intended. I have been shepherding the 10-year elementary facilities plan since its adoption in 2013, and I take my responsibilities and my accountability to this community seriously. It is entirely possible my concerns are unwarranted, but the process does not allow for me to share these concerns after you deliberate, only before. I also believe my feedback may be helpful for the public who may not have a background in school construction projects and how the funding works. I urge Commission members to take the following 6 issues into consideration when determining what will be a recommendation versus a requirement. 1, enrollment. South Windsor is now the fastest growing K-12 district in the state, and I appreciate that this Commission has taken an interest in this dynamic and understood the challenges that our growing enrollment presents for the district. While I'm extremely proud that families are flocking to our community for the schools, it doesn't mean that I haven't lost sleep at night trying to figure out how to meet the facility needs of our growing population. Our enrollment projections are extremely important when considering imposing costly requirements to the project. Because the rate of our population growth is uncertain, particularly post-COVID, we need to be nimble and in a position to be responsive to changing conditions. The more requirements imposed tonight, the less nimble we will be. In Phase 2, as you know, we have to be responsive to changing conditions and add classrooms to both PRS and Eli Terry in the middle of construction. We could not have done this if we had not been good financial stewards throughout the entire process. It is important that we adhere to the approved budget and ensure that we will have access to funds that may be necessary to respond to our growing student population. Second, are factors unique to school construction projects. While I know you know this, the public may not be aware that school construction projects are much different applicants than a for-profit business. If Toll Brothers or Whole Foods comes before you and the Commission requires enhancements that will add costs to their projects, they simply make a business decision as to whether those added costs are worth absorbing within their projected profit margin. A school construction project is quite different as its funding is finite. The South Windsor taxpayer approved through the March 2020 referendum a specific amount of funding for the construction of a new Pleasant Valley school, and the dollar amount in question was based on a budget that reflects the educational specifications adopted by the Board of Education. The overall budget and what the funding is intended to accomplish is outlined in the referendum's explanatory text, which was mailed to all residents. The Public Building Commission's charge is to execute the project as outlined in the educational specifications. The PBC does not have the authority to change the scope of the project, nor does it have the authority to exceed the budget. Thus, any requirements levied become unfunded mandates. Of course, minor changes and expenses can be absorbed within the adopted budget, and there are such items tonight, Mr. Barrett will point out, for which we have no concerns and can easily accommodate within the budget. It is the totality of the potential expenditures that has me concerned. 3, Department of Administrative Services. It is important to remember that the state has significant oversight of the school construction projects that seek state reimbursement. We are highly accountable to the Office of School Construction Grants, and we meet with this oversight body throughout the entire project. They scrutinize our projects in multiple ways, including whether the expenditures are appropriate for a school setting and its required educational programs, as well as whether the costs overall are reasonable. The state determines what expenses are ineligible for reimbursement. Specifically, they will not reimburse expenditures that are considered by them to be municipal improvements that should not be funded through school construction grants. For context, the state is expected to reimburse South Windsor with $21 million for the PV project. We worked extremely hard through the budget development process to ensure we were maximizing the reimbursement for the benefit of the South Windsor taxpayer. 4, stakes are high in remaining on schedule. If during one of our upcoming required meetings, we had to inform the state that the project is almost could be $3 million over budget before putting a shovel in the ground, I worry that the approvals we need from them to proceed could be delayed. The importance of remaining on schedule with this project cannot be overstated. This is where the distinction of a requirement versus a recommendation is critical. If the items being discussed tonight are classified as recommendations from the Commission, and it is understood that they will be executed if funds allow, that places the project in a much more favorable light with the state. We would not be over budget in their perspective. If these expenses are required, however, we would then need to report that we are tracking over budget. It is also important to note that delays in opening Pleasant Valley have consequences for both PV and the middle school. At PV, and I know many of you are aware of this, we have significant traffic issues, as well as reliance on 12 portables. We already have 19 more kindergarten students registered than what was projected, and it's only July. To say the least, the school cannot come soon enough, and remaining on schedule is paramount. As for the middle school, we must move the preschool out of the middle school and into the new PV as planned, as we are simply running out of room at the middle school. In fact, we had to construct 4 additional classrooms this summer within the footprint of TE just to have enough space for September. 5, uncertainty of the bidding climate. With the uncertainty of the bidding climate post-COVID, it would be fiscally irresponsible to require nice-to-haves when we do not know for certain if we will have enough funds for the must-haves. 6, credibility with community for future projects. I can't say tonight if we will need to go back to the community for additional construction projects to meet the needs of our growing secondary schools, but we certainly can't rule it out. The 3 referenda associated with the 10-year plan were enthusiastically supported by this community. Most recently, for Pleasant Valley, which garnered 88.5% of those who went to the polls voting in favor. This margin of support is unheard of. The reasons for such strong support is that the community trusted the accuracy of the information they were being given, they trusted that we were being fiscally responsible, and they trusted that we were going to deliver what we said we would deliver on time and on budget. Our transparency and fiscal stewardship is what has led to our credibility with the community. If we leave here tonight with requirements that put the project's success in peril, it could affect our credibility and ultimately the viability of future necessary school projects. Those are my overarching concerns. I want to close by thanking Commission members for your service. I appreciate that you are volunteers who put in countless hours to serve our community. I also want to recognize our town colleagues in the Planning and Engineering, Parks and Rec departments, as well as the PD, Fire, and Fire Marshal's office, who are always helpful and committed to working together as a team. At this time, I turn things over to Public Building Commission Chair Matthew Montana.
Good evening, Commissioners. My
If you
name's
could,
Matt.
Matt, lift this up a little, have it right in front of your mouth when you're talking, please.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Matthew Montana, Acting Public Building Commission Chairperson. I share the same concerns that Kate Carter just mentioned, and I'm worried about any additional items outside of the educational specifications that are not budgeted for. At the time of architect interview and proposal review, the PBC requested the 4 selected architects to include a full site design and future fit out of some athletic fields. We requested this site master plan to allow for a better building siting and to see what types of different design opportunities could be achieved if the site were maximized for future uses. The proposed additional athletic fields and architectural design services are not part of the educational specifications, but were shown on the drawings only as a potential fit out. The Public Building Commission charge is to carry out the monitoring of the design, construction, and furnishings that meet the approved educational specifications within the allotted funds. We're asking the Planning and Zoning Commission to state your preferences as requests and limit the amount of requirements that could cost additional money and impact the project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioners, my name is Jim Barrett. I am principal with Drummy Roseanne Anderson. We are a planning and design firm located here in South Windsor at 225 Oakland Road, Studio 205. I'm here to speak this evening. We've already responded in writing as a team under our notes column in terms of each of the items that were identified back on the June 8th evening. And I want to indicate that I'm here in support of both Dr. Carter, the administration of South Windsor Public Schools, Matt Montana, chair of the PBC, and it's in support of their stewardship of this project, and ultimately with an abundance of caution as we enter into probably one of the most volatile bidding climates that I've experienced in 35 years of this type of work. Of the 25 items that were identified back on June 8th, 5 of them were informational, and they include items like a request for the number of school buses coming to the school each day, identification of the sidewalk sizing throughout the site, identification of the type and number of special events that would occur at the building, as well as identification of additional parking available for those special events. Additionally, a question was identified for information regarding fire drills. And as I mentioned, each of these are responded to, and I will further speak about the identification of the number of special events as well as the additional parking for those special events under a segment that we'll identify as parking. Before I get underway with those areas, as Dr. Carter indicated, there are 6 of the 20 items that we can address immediately moving forward. Item number 6 in the listing that would be found on page 1, that's the second column, the item number. Item number 6 is the inclusion of the walkway at Ellington Road. And this was something that we heard at our informal meeting with this commission earlier in the year, something that the design team took back to both the PBC and South Windsor Public Schools. And it was something that we worked toward as we did our design development efforts. And we are able to absorb that cost within the approved budget. Item number 7, which is an east-west connector sidewalk. This is something that we identify as a recommendation as an ad alternate as we bring it to the Permanent Building Commission. Item number 8, a stair sidewalk at the IPOP area. This again would be one absorbed within the approved budget scope. Item number 16, an additional 2 handicap parking spaces near the gymnasium. These, like the others mentioned before, is an item that can be acted on and absorbed within the approved budget. Item number 19, the west parking lot access concerns. These were raised at the informal meeting, and our team was able to prepare in the documents that are before you a response that we feel addresses this concern. And this, like the ones above, are able to be absorbed and within the current approved budget. Lastly, items 22 and 23 in the listing, those are found out on page 3. These are for the athletic and recreational fields. Our recommendation would be that these be inserted as an ad alternate post-GMP. And that distinction is because of the significant potential costs of these efforts, wanting to ensure that the base scope of work can be addressed. In phases 1 and 2, through the course of 3 building projects, this community had the good fortune of coming in under budget through well-managed projects. We hope that to be the case as we come forward in this project. But again, it's an abundance of caution that leads us here in terms of addressing these as I am sharing them with you this evening. So I'd like to focus on 3 areas: parking, sidewalks, and then the athletic and recreation areas. Relative to parking, and these are grouped on page 2, items 16, that is the identification of 2 accessible handicap spaces near the gym, as I identified, that would be completed as requested and can be absorbed under the current budget. Item number 17, this was one of the informational requests that I identified at the outset. This is identification of the number and types of special events that will be occurring. And in the attached memo that we shared, the first page of this addresses those special events. And they include a meet and greet, which happens once a year, an open house event, again, that happens annually, a single time per year, and then evening events that are typically about once a month, and typically their attendance at about 50. And as we look at these 3 kind of special events, the total parking necessary is approximately 300 vehicles to address those. The next item, which is identification of parking for special events, that is item number 18, that is addressed in the second page of that same memo, which is in your packet. And within it, we identify 4 parking areas for special event parking. Area 1 is the 180 parking spaces that are provided within the upper tier of the site, not inclusive of the Ellington Road parking. Area 2 are 56 curbside parking spaces. Area 3, 71 spaces on the grass playfield area at the upper tier. These 3 areas, taken in aggregate, support those 300 spaces necessary for our greatest special events that happen through the course of the year. Additionally, a 4th area is currently being worked on. There is a memo of understanding currently with the church, the adjacent church parcel, for use of their parking. That's an additional 161 spaces. We are hopeful that that will become reality for this project, and we expect that. When it does occur, that will yield 468 spaces available at the upper tier of the site. And so with that, I'll conclude that portion of the discussion around parking. What I'd like to touch on next is a series of issues around that of sidewalks and walkways. These can be found on page 1 of the large format package, the landscape package. And as I mentioned, item number 6 within it, the Ellington Road sidewalk, a significant investment in the improvement of the site, full length of the Ellington Road frontage. Within your packet, there was also an additional insert which identified in color coding those sidewalks which were initially designed for and seen as supportive of the educational program statement. They're found in green. These are also sidewalks that would be fully supported by the state in terms of reimbursement. As we came to the informal meeting early in the new year, we did identify, or we did hear that frontage along Ellington Road, that there was a true desire to have that addressed with walkway. As I said, we brought that back to the PBC and to South Windsor Public Schools as a concern. And as we worked through our design development pricing package, we were able to incorporate it in the approved budget. And so that has been acted on as part of the work. Item number 7, the concrete sidewalk along the east-west connector drive. This is one of the items that we are suggesting to be included within the package, and we're proposing as an add alternate. Item number 8, add the concrete walk from the east IPOP stair to the existing sidewalk. This is one that can be completed as requested and can be absorbed within the current approved budget. And that gives a quick overview of the sidewalks and walkways discussion. The last area that I'd like to touch on is that of recreational fields and landscaping. And this begins at the bottom of page 2 and continues on to page 3. And it groups together a series of items. Item number 20, found on the bottom of page 2, this was a request for artificial turf in lieu of natural grass within the courtyard space. This is one not being recommended by the design team or through our discussions within the working group and with administration. The value of this would outstrip the anticipated costs for that area and the budgeting for that area. A second item is that natural grass is something that would be preferred for use by the youngest students within your system, or some of the youngest students within your system. Also, maintenance of this area will be performed, as it is performed in the court spaces throughout the district by South Windsor Public Schools facilities. At the top of page 3, this one is linked to item 20. Item 21, it was consideration of irrigation if in fact natural grass is considered for that courtyard space. And a significant concern that comes to the table is that this does not support the energy conservation measures which are identified in the Connecticut High Performance Building Standard. These are guidelines that we have to adhere to be able to garner the state support of the project. If in fact we did introduce irrigation within this area, we would lose that point that we are seeking. And loss of that point means we would have to find other points as possible replacements. These other measures likely would be more costly in terms of their application. We do truly try to find the lowest hanging fruit available. One last note was that prior projects have not included irrigation. I'd like to drop down to item 24, the mow strip around the building. This is one that, as we had our discussions, is not being recommended. This is a requirement that is not seen in the other phases, either in phase 1 or phase 2 of the school projects. In my personal experience, as I mentioned, nearly 35 years of educational planning, programming, and design work, I have not designed such a mow strip and have not seen one on any campus that I have visited. And lastly, a note that the existing schools are currently maintained without the mow strips. At the June 8th meeting, I did misspeak, and I did indicate that if need be, South Windsor Public Schools would handle that maintenance. That is not the case. The expectation is that it would be handled as in all the other schools. The maintenance that is being handled by South Windsor Public Schools, and again, consistent with the other schools, is that of the court space. And that was a misspeaking on my part. The last items that I'd like to draw to your attention, items 22 and 23. These have to do with the lower field baseball and multi-purpose field that Matt Montana spoke to. We were one of the design teams invited in as part of the selection process, and as part of that invitation, we were asked to enter into a bit of a master planning exercise for the site to understand not only where could you place a school within the site, but consider the whole site and see what kind of fit out might you ultimately achieve. And so what's within your documents are shown as dashed, both a multi-purpose field and a baseball field. These are identified as future fields, and these are not part of the current base scope and are not part of the educational program statement. However, we would like to identify them as an add alternate, and the strategy being that they be identified as an add alternate post GMP. And again, this speaks to wanting to ensure that the GMP can be established for the base scope of work and achieve the items that have been identified by South Windsor Public Schools, the building committee, the permanent building committee, and the educational specification. But certainly there is recognition of the potential value, and this strategy would afford, if we are fortunate enough to find a good bid climate as we had on the first 3 schools and the first 2 phases of work here within the community, be able to bring them forward as an adult, again, post GMP. And so with that, I can conclude our comments, but certainly our full team is here to answer and discuss any of the items that you might care to. With us this evening, Ben Wheeler, who introduced us here from Design DPI, Design Professionals Incorporated. They, like our team, a South Windsor firm. And Dave Dixon from SLR, who is our landscape architect. And as I said, happy to entertain any questions that you may have for us. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll turn to our town planner and director of planning, Michelle Leip.
Thank you. Just a couple brief comments, update from the last meeting. The applicant, Mr. Barrett, did attend the Design Review Board meeting as a second visit in person and did bring materials and did go over the colors with the board. Had quite a lengthy discussion, particularly regarding the front elevation. I think at the end of the day, the board was satisfied with what was presented to them, understanding that the colors are not an exact match, that will go through a bidding process, but I think Jim will agree that it was a good meeting and everybody was satisfied with the comments. A couple other things. The applicant did meet with the fire marshal and Lieutenant Bonaducci from the police department. One of the questions that came up was about the roadway and whether or not it should be gated or not gated. I think the consensus was that it should not be gated. There are 2 measures of traffic calming in the roadway, and the hope is that that will accomplish the needed slowing down of speed. So at this point, that is a recommendation not to gate that roadway. Lieutenant Bonaducci also did communicate to me that the question of crosswalks on both Ellington Road and Long Hill Road is something that should be looked at, and it's recommending, maybe approval condition along the lines. It should be looked at with OSTA, with the school planning team, the traffic authority, town engineer, to come up with appropriate locations. As he reiterated to me that, you can't put any paint down on Ellington Road without the state approving it. So at this point, it would be appropriate to have their input into it. Just a comment on the special event parking. If we do end up using the church parking lot, I think there has to be some kind of connection for folks to walk there. I think that's something that, you know, at this point, without knowing, they haven't designed anything, but whether it's a walkway up that sidewalk that is at Alt or some other cut through, they'll want to have some way to get people from that parking lot over to the school. And secondly, just a question on the parking at the south end of it. Again, how are folks going to get in there? I don't know if there's a curb cut being planned for that area there, exactly what, but how that parking lot will take shape. And just a couple other just brief comments. The last school application for both the schools, the planning and zoning did put an approval condition related to lighting on site, and the lighting was to cut off at 11:30 and come on at 4 a.m. with a photo cell. I think that my understanding was that the schools were kind of all being treated the same, and I just did want to put that out there tonight to see if the applicant, if they had any concerns with that, because we would look to condition it similar to how we have the other schools, just to have the lighting reduced at later hours. Obviously, security lighting and whatnot would be appropriate to stay on. At that point, the comments that I have. Thank you.
Okay. I'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any new comments. Many of my comments were addressed with this presentation, and some are still outstanding, and I'm sure will be addressed as they finalize plans.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I think that we're going to have to go through these one by one.
Excuse me, Chairman, we do have public that may want to speak.
We do have what?
We do have some public here that may want to speak.
Oh, okay. Do we have any letters to be read in for this application?
Mr. Dixon's here. I don't know, you want to read your letter or do you want to speak it? He has the letter submitted.
Okay.
Yes, Robert Dickinson, presently residing at 400 Seabury Drive in Bloomfield. This is kind of a clarification of comments that I made last time, and asking that the 5-foot concrete sidewalks along Ellington Road be increased to 8 or 10 foot bituminous multi-use path. I wish to better define the cost reduction using numbers that a nearby engineering firm uses for estimates. Uses an estimate of $15 a square foot for concrete, $55 for bituminous, and the calculated cost of using those numbers of a 5-foot sidewalk would be $75 per linear foot. The cost of 8-foot bituminous would be $49 a foot, and 10-foot $61. And just guesstimating the length that's involved along Route 30 there, probably saving in excess of $10,000, but the main benefit would be having a wider walkway so that bicycles could use it at the same time as pedestrians or even handicapped people. And basically it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Is anybody else from the public wishing to comment, speak on any of these items? Hearing and seeing none. Please step forward. And when you come forward, there should be a sign-in sheet up there.
Pardon me? Okay, I'll catch it. Okay. My name is Steve Castle. I reside at 320 Long Hill Road. My property, all of it, all of our frontage on Long Hill Road, which consists of 300 feet, is directly across from the proposed school property. So the entire thing encompasses my property. And I had one concern
about the lighting. I had driven through PR Smith, and I know that that parking lot lighting is not 25 feet tall. Do we know what the height of that parking lot lighting is at PR Smith? And I know the proposed lighting for this site for Pleasant Valley is 25 feet, is it not?
I'd have to look at the plans. Maybe the town engineer knows off top of his head, or the applicant. I'm not sure. But make your point, Stephen.
My point is, with my house directly across from where parking lots and everything are going to be, is it necessary to have 25-foot LED lighting on until 11:30 at night and coming on at 4 o'clock in the morning? I know that bordering Long Hill Road, we're not going to be looking at extensive foliage between the edge of Long Hill Road and the parking lot that these lights are going to be placed in.
Okay. The commissioners will get answers to that in their questions and
Okay.
comments.
And the other one was my safety concern of the pass-through from Ellington Road to Long Hill Road, which we addressed last time, and the proposal was for that gate. But I understand that safety vehicles need to have the ability to circumnavigate the school. But like, again, at PR Smith, there's a gate, a locked gate, not allowing emergency vehicles to circumnavigate the school. And now we're making an exception on this one. And if we think about the safety problem of people passing from Ellington Road through to Long Hill Road to avoid that light, I think it's a big thing. I think it's a big, big safety problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we'll go to commissioners. Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I'm not sure which of you should answer this, but can I direct your attention to the drawing labeled MA1, Mike Alpha 1, which is also titled Site Plan Materials. And there are 2 notes on there related to electric vehicle charging.
Yeah.
They're vague. It just says electric vehicle charging and future electric vehicle charging. I guess I'd like to see the electric vehicle charging stations to be a level 2 electric vehicle charging with the 4. And I'd like to see the 6 future charging stations be EV ready level 2. EV ready means it's wired, but you don't actually install the charger. Now, if you are looking for, and I don't know how much this costs, but if you're looking for a place to save a little money, you can do the future electric vehicles by what's called EV capable, which means you have the conduit and put the wiring in later. But prefer to see that as EV ready level 2 from the get-go, which means the wiring is there, but you don't have any chargers. I know Ben maybe knows more about that, or
For the record, Ben Wheeler from Design Professionals. So the plan is that the 4 spaces designated as electric vehicle charging stations will be level 2 charging stations. And the 6 future will be phase 2, level 2 ready, where just the conduit is run, but not the wiring.
Okay, ready means the wire, capable means you have the conduit. Okay, just from the jargon in our regulations.
Okay, so yes, the plan is just to pull the conduit for those 6 future spaces.
Okay. Personally, I'm comfortable with that. How are you funding the charging stations? How is that going to happen? The reason I'm asking that question is you can either buy them outright and own them, or you can have a third party come in and, as is done with solar on the schools, provide that as a service.
Hi, Kay Turner with Colliers. At this point, we have not gotten to that level of design, but I think it's good information to know whether it'll be procured through the project or it'll be a lease.
I mean, the advantage of the lease is, again, it's another opportunity for you to take it off of your budget, but still provide it. And so, again, it's a thought that I would leave you with.
No, it's good information to take back to the team that we can dig a little bit further
I mean,
into
I
that.
definitely like to see those chargers in place, though, when the school opens, so just to be clear. Or at least within a reasonable time when the school opens. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that it, Steve, or do you have?
Yeah, let me just say, I concur with the other comments that I read in this. I do note that there's a gate at Eli Terry, and I've actually had a problem almost running into it when it was left ajar. So gates have a mixed value, and I think. I guess all the rest of these, I buy into your comments. What is meant? There are 2 things on there I didn't know what they meant. What is meant by an alternate bid? And then the other thing, well, since somebody's going to answer it, this term GMP, what does that stand for? Okay.
To address the alternate bid, the package would be prepared. The state of Connecticut for school reimbursement projects requires that we identify an alternate bid as within the project, so we would draw it up with everything in place. We would also have to draw it up just without that element in place. Once bids are received, if we have favorable bidding climate, we are able to bring in the ad alternates as the budget affords opportunity. The reference to post-GMP is to identify that we would go through the base bid cycle, establish a guaranteed maximum price with the construction management firm. That happens to be Gilbane Construction Management, who has worked on both Phase 1 and Phase 2, so they've delivered 3 projects here within the community. And those bid alternates would be put out to competitive bidding at that point as ad alternate strategy.
So you get a bid in, and this item, just as an example, and I'm not picking on that, but it's just item number 23, which is multi-purpose fields. You have stated that it's going to be considered as part of a bid alternate strategy, acceptance subject to budget status post-GMP. So you get a bid in, and what's in the bid? I mean, I've seen bids that come in with, kind of optional items.
Yep.
Is that the way that would be structured, or what are we talking about here?
Each of them that are identified as ad alternate, those would be in the base bid documents immediately with what goes out within the bid set, the construction document set. Because of the significant cost centers around the additional engineering and the overall values of a potential ball field and multi-purpose baseball field and multi-purpose field, it's recommended that we get our base bid GMP in place and understand that the project is properly funded for the base scope of work. And then if we are in a position where it does look like there's some room for additional scope, be able to establish the ad alternate for the field work, again, after the GMP. The others would happen prior to the establishment of the GMP.
Okay, thank you. Now, in industry, we often have contracts with that are based on indexes, where the price can go up if a certain index goes up, maybe the price of steel index or a labor index of a certain type. Are any of our bids subject to indices of any type?
I can allow Colliers to speak to it as the bidding comes in, but I can assure you that as we look to the reimbursement expectations, that there is no connection to an indice that will raise the value available to us. And I don't know if Chuck or Kate would like to speak to the question around the indices within the budget or within the project itself once bids are received.
Yeah, I mean, the reason because as everyone knows, prices have been extremely volatile, and I'm actually trying to put wood floors in my house, so I know what we're talking about here. So I just want to make sure that, when we get a bid and accept it, that's the price, and the contractor will not have the ability to say, well, steel just went up by 10%, therefore.
Yeah, this is Kate Turner with Colliers again. This is one of the benefits of using the guaranteed maximum price model. It's a contract directly with the construction manager where we do receive bids from all of the independent bidders for all of the different packages, and they lock into that price for the entirety of the project. The only way that that can change is if the scope of the project changes and they have to submit a request for a change order. So that is the benefit of that. As we're in a volatile market, the bid strategy is really key here. The timing is really key, that we get these contractors at the right moment, that they can give us the most competitive pricing that they have available to them at the moment. So the strategy really is key as we're talking about all these alternates. That they give, it's kind of like an a la carte menu. So we get our base project, they give us a price for it, and then we can pick from X, Y, and Z to add that in there if we have the additional funds available once we get the total package pricing back in. So the alternates are, they're a la carte, if you will.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner LeBlanc?
Thank you. When's the bid opening for this? Is it pretty soon?
Yeah, we're shooting for the September timeframe.
September. Well, I know last year we had a shortage of toilet paper and chicken, and this year it seems to be construction materials. And I understand I work in infrastructure projects during the day, and the costs of a lot of things have gone up dramatically. But I'm told, or I understand, that some of that is short-lived. Not that it's related to this, but the price of plywood jumped from $28 a sheet to about $90, and now it's about $70 for 3/4-inch plywood. It's on its way down. I'm hoping these things have an effect on this project in a good way. Because I'm seeing these comments, and there's quite a bit, and it seems like they're being nickel and dimed, and I get it. But what I don't want to see happen is a compromise in the building and have a less quality actual building for the town, because it becomes a problem in maintenance and all that 25 years from now. I'd like to think that design has at least a 30-year window before major maintenance does occur in this building. Things like sidewalks and like that can wait. Sidewalks tend to have they kind of make themselves over time. Kids will walk where they want to walk. So if you have I'm looking at this connector road between Long Hill and Ellington Road, and if that's something that's an alternate bid and it can't be done, the kids are going to walk on the side of the road anyway. It'll become a footpath. It's not going to look nice, but you can put a sidewalk there at some point. And I see the need for perhaps cutting back or having an alternate in some of these items, which is understandable. but I'd hate to see the building be compromised in any way for that. Instead of putting a 25-year roof, you're putting on a 10-year roof and things like that. That shouldn't happen.
That's exactly right. That's part of our strategy as we go forward is, first and foremost, the school is paramount. We need to make sure that the educational specifications are met, the level of quality is met that's expected to meet that quality standard and to reduce the overall maintenance costs of the building. And we would like to be able to plan smartly for these items so that hopefully we are correct and that trend will continue to go down and we can accept all of these alternates once our GMP comes back and is in that right price range. And hopefully we're just as favorable on this project as we have been in the last 3 elementary schools. But we, as the theme from Dr. Carter, Matt Montana, and Jim Barrett has been, is we want to be conservative. We want to be cautious because right now we're uncharted territory. We all know, as you said, 20, 90, 70, nobody has a crystal ball at this point, and we want to try and be as proactive as we can be and make sure that we're making the most fiscally responsible decisions for the town of South Windsor, for the taxpayer, and ultimately that the students get the school that they deserve.
Okay. And just one last question. That connector road between the 2 roads, I'm not in favor of a gate. Sometimes they're just the nuisance, and a lot of times they're left open and things like that. They're not well maintained or used a lot. But I do feel that you have a few rumble strips in there that takes the bottom out of low cars if they speed across there. That's probably not a bad thing. Because I'll say this, that road between Foster Street and I don't know where it connects to in the back by Timothy Edwards over by Orchard Hill is a literal drag strip. People speed there a lot. I run there a lot in the winter and it's pretty bad.
Yeah, we'd like to avoid that also. Currently we do have 1 speed table identified and 1 additional speed hump identified. So there are 2 speed control measures on that connection currently.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Foley.
All righty, so I'd like to, I guess it would be Dave Dixon, if I could have you explain to me, or I don't know if it's Dave or if it's Mr. Worthington, but how is it on this project and not the prior projects that the athletic fields became an ad alternate? Like what is your plan for that area? So we build the school, we demo the existing, this area here, in the base bid, in your specifications, how is this area to be left for the town of South Windsor?
Dave Dixon with SLR. The area on along Ellington Road would be graded. First of all, there's a fair amount of fill material. There's going to be some excess material. The intent is to not take anything off-site, but to reuse and move it around on site. So that material would be placed at the lower elevation, and it would basically be graded off at maybe 1.5 to 2% from east to west, and the existing parking stays as is. The result of that is going to be that there will be some type of vertical grade change between the elevation of the fields and the existing parking lot to remain, because the fields are going to be filled. The depth, the height, the vertical height, we're unsure at this point. But those numbers, that calculation is to be worked out. So we will have, by the time we're ready to, probably within the next month or so, we will have those numbers, quantity of material. So at which point, if the fields were to be constructed, one of the things that we know that we would try to do is the fields would perhaps be terraced, with the multipurpose field being higher than the ball diamond, so that there would be a grade change between the 2. Obviously, we have to consider ADA and access and all those things, and at that point, if that option and that bid alternate was accepted, and we were to proceed forward with that, the access from the parking lot would be redesigned and shifted. the parking lot would be moved toward Ellington Road to about a 10-foot offset. I'm not sure the distance, the lateral distance that it would move, but I believe it's somewhere in the range of 15 feet, so that the edge of parking would be about 10 feet behind the property line. This then gives us the added ability to take up the grade change for accessibility, because we're moving the parking lot further away from the edge of the field. Now, with that added distance, we can make the grade change more accessible, so we can get handicap access up to the fields. So it's kind of a complex, calculation and effort. So that's one of the reasons why it's not yet included, as part of the bid.
So if it's not accepted, if the ad alternate's not accepted in the base bid, what are you leaving us here? Just a pile and somebody's gonna see the pile?
It'll be a turf, landscaped with grass, and it'll be seeded and established as lawn, graded at approximately 1.5 to 2% from east to west.
If I may, Commissioner Foley, the statement, how is the recreation component not addressed? Quite the opposite. All of the educationally required educational components that are needed to support the school.
I get the ed spec thing, I get that. I'm looking at a big area that's an ad alternate, okay?
Yes, sir.
So when you're done grading, this is what I do every day. So instead of making it an ad alternate, when you guys figure out your engineering, which we've had, I don't know how long to do, but when you figure out your cuts and fills and what you're gonna end up left over with materials, make it suitable so that it can be in the base bid, graded properly for this section of town to have some athletic fields. You have them at Orchard Hill, you got them at Eli, you got them at PR Smith. Hello? You get where I'm going?
This is a field area that will be level loam seeded, as David just described, and available for use as recreation field. Absolutely.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, sir.
So at the end of the day, ad alternate or not, it's gonna be a playable surface. The only thing you're telling me is that, which I know that the town employees, it's tough for those guys, they're shorthanded as it is. We might not have infill clay, but we will have the gradations and the tiering will be done where this will be usable for the community for recreational purposes. I know the Board of Ed owns the land, but give me a break. When we're done, we're not just gonna have a pile of soil that has whatever PCBs, DDTs, and all this other stuff that we...
Absolutely not. No, it will be graded, loamed.
Then it should be in the base bid.
It is in the base bid. That portion is in the base bid, sir.
What am I hearing about ad alternates?
What David was describing was an ad alternate, potentially to take it to a higher level of use. To get a ball field in.
Such as amenities. Are we talking about the ball safety netting I talked about for if the...
Baseball diamond, infield skinning, backstop, benches, dugout areas, those types of things would be part of that adult scope of work. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's go to losing points. When I see all the courtyards in town, and I took a time to, I'm the one that's been asking for the maintenance strip just because I do know the guys in the town. And have you guys walked along these schools? Have you seen the existing conditions of our brand-new schools, what it looks like against the brick and the...
Yes, sir.
You've seen it?
I've been in your courtyards.
And you see all the, like the string trimming and the green and the staining on our brand-new products. That's the reason I've been asking for the maintenance strip.
We understand the maintenance concern. We are also talking about the usage of the space. There is a preference for natural grass relative to artificial for these youngest students.
I'm talking about the maintenance strip. Now, we'll get to the courtyard.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking Mow strip.
Yeah,
Okay.
the maintenance strip.
I've not seen a Mow strip installed on an educational project in 35 years of this work, and I haven't visited a site that I haven't worked on, and I visit a lot of campuses. I have not seen one. Now, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea, it's just,
Well,
I
I've
haven't
done a
seen
lot of
one,
them.
and we do know.
Work with your firm, and there's a lot of stone mow strips, and there's a lot of maintenance strips with Malone McBroom, SLR, Richter Segan, you name it, and we've done them. And I can give you a list of them if you need it. But, all right, let's move on to the courtyard now.
Yes, sir.
Another denial, okay? So I want to know if we ask for or require irrigation, and you're going to lose points,
Yes, sir.
okay? Where is a place that you can gain a point?
There's a variety of points available. As I mentioned, we typically look for the lowest hanging fruit, those that have the lesser impacts on the budget for the project. Other examples are incorporation of various maintenance strategies or incorporation of certain components of the system into an educational program. Those are some examples. There's a wide variety of others, but we have taken kind of the path to get us to it with the least amount of cost to the project and certainly those that don't take dollars out of our pocket. This will take dollars out of our pocket. It will not be reimbursable by the state. They just simply will not reimburse irrigation.
What's the square footage of that courtyard?
Any help? Square footage of the courtyard? We can get that for you, sir.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
It's not a major area. So when you talk about reimbursable, but I'm talking about the longevity and the quality to be able to reseed. If you want to go natural and you're going to fight constantly against, you guys are going to have to start opening up your minds in the future for other projects about going with synthetic, because that will become an outdoor educational play area or outdoor classroom that no matter how much rain, no matter what you get, 8 inches of rain, those things drain 140 inches an hour, okay? If they're done properly. You can go out there, the day before you could have 6 inches of rain, but you're gonna go out there. Now they have breathing breaks. This is a place, no matter what the weather, as soon as you get done raining, you can go out there, okay? You could put a pergola, you could be a cool down area. But again, going with natural grass in these courtyards, we all know what they turn out looking like. Right? You see what these happen. You hold the landscape contractor hostage, make sure that this thing looks like Disneyland, but then as soon as you hand it over to the town and they're short-handed, we know what they all turn into.
To speak to the issues of outdoor court, outdoor classroom, usable area immediately after a rainstorm, we do have hard surface areas planned within the court space in concert with the grass areas to provide those types of spaces where in early spring, where you might have a rainstorm, it stops in afternoon, pavement starts to dry off. We could have kids outside in the courtyard using it as an outdoor classroom, using it as outdoor space. So there is provision for that, and there is opportunity for that.
So when the grass wears out, we're not allowed to use herbicides, fungicides, or pesticides on this grass, and it gets summer patch. And it needs to be overseeded. Prior to the school coming into session, what's our best shot of making this happen? Irrigation, correct or incorrect? I'm asking you, Dave.
Yes.
What's the best, what do you need to grow grass?
What do you need to grow grass?
Yeah.
6 inches topsoil, a scarified subbase, and water.
That's all I'm asking for is
Oh,
water.
understood.
I'm not asking for a lot, because we're not gonna get the synthetic turf, but I am gonna ask for water. And you can find some other fruit that's hanging off some other tree, but I'm gonna ask that there's irrigation in that courtyard, so that this courtyard won't look like the other courtyards over time. That's all I got.
Okay. Commissioner Bonzani.
Thank you, Chairman. A lot of my questions have already been asked from Mike, but the lighting, I guess one of the residents wants to make sure the lighting, if he lives right across the street on 300 foot is a lot of area there. I guess, Ben, are they 25-foot poles? Did you check that to see if that's what?
Yes, for the record, the lighting plan was prepared by CES, our electrical engineer, but I can speak on behalf of it. The parking lot lights are on 25-foot poles, which is allowed per your regulations. The lighting levels do meet the zoning regulations at the property line, less than a quarter-foot candle. Also, I do want to note all the light poles at the east end of the property, adjacent to Long Hill Road and behind the residences that are abutting the school, will also have house-side shields on them as well, to deflect the glare away from those residential areas.
Oh, okay, good.
And those are already called out on the plans.
Yeah, and I know we've seen a lot of other lighting through different projects, and it's amazing the way, you know, it lights up the project itself, but like 5 feet away, I'm sure it's gonna be kind of like that, you said, with the side shield. Yeah, so I'm just hoping the resident hears that, but that is good to hear. And I guess Michelle had a question about the church parking lot. How far is that away to the school? Does anybody have a rough idea? Because if they're gonna park there, they're gonna have to get a way to walk to the school. And, Mr. Merrick said that might be a parking spot for some of the big, events you have.
It's from the closest point of the school to the closest point of the parking lot, it's about 240 feet, just scaling it off the plan.
Okay, so okay. Will there be any kind of walkway from there to there, or they would have to come to a sidewalk? And, I mean, Michelle asked if there was gonna be some kind of a church parking lot walkway, so if for those special events, it's probably gonna be at nighttime also.
Right, we'd accept a condition of approval that if that is used for overflow parking, that there is some sort of sidewalk connection, to be determined where, just depending on exactly how the sidewalks end up, falling with the final design. But, I do want to point out, as Mr. Barrett said, that based on the memo that we put together for our special event parking, we do feel that the special event parking can be handled within the upper tier of the site, but the public schools are still pursuing the memorandum of understanding with the church just in case.
That was my next question, Ben. My 3 boys went to Philip R. Smith School, and when they had the special events, we used to park, on that grass. And if it was a rainy week or whatever, that field, I mean, the tire marks, the tire divots, when we all left that night, I went back and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. So, I don't know, I'm not a real proponent of parking on a field, especially if you have like a rainy week like we've been having. It really makes that whole field or area, whatever you want to call it, look lousy. I don't know what if the town plans on fixing it up after, because I know at Philip R. Smith in the past, it looked pretty bad. And I think that's what you guys have envisioned on the major park and the park on the fields. And, like I said, if you get 2, 3, 4 days of rain, it does, so I just hope that gets addressed. I think that's it. Mike had some other questions. Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Commissioner Dexter.
There's 2 words I hate the most, and that's unfunded mandates. And I'm a little confused about the fields and where they fall into this whole project. I know some of our commissioners are very passionate about it, and I can understand when you've had children come through the sports teams and you have some frustration of that. So, Michelle, I would like to publicly request that Attorney Olson go back to the March 20th referendum language and give us her opinion on what that includes. Does it necessarily include fields, or doesn't it? That's all I have.
Commissioner Flagg.
Yeah, I have a question for, I don't know if it's for Dr. Carter or, but my question was, when the school opens, at what percentage will it be filled? 70%, 80%, 90%, 100%?
104.
500%. No, we will be full. We will open full. The way that school construction projects are designed is that you can build them to your highest 8-year projection. So you can look out 8 years and find your highest projection, and that's the largest you can build the school for. But as I think you know, we continue to track higher than our projections. So, for example, we have more students in the school today than what next year's projections are. Not by a lot, but yes. So we continue to exceed the projections. It's hard to know post-COVID whether we're going to see some shifts and changes. But as I mentioned, we already have 19 more kindergarten students registered as of July than what was projected for September for that school. So I can assure you that every inch of that building will be needed and used.
Okay, I got another question for you. A lot of these things on these sheets here say not within property limits, like flashing signs and stuff like that. Well, isn't it up to you and the school board to say when you might want flashing signs for crosswalks or crosswalks going across a major artery or something like that? Wouldn't you look at that and then call in the proper people to do it?
Actually, there's a lot of people that would be involved in that decision, and on Ellington Road, it's a state road, so that really wouldn't even be a local decision. It would be in concert with our local police and traffic and engineering. But on Ellington Road, for example, that's actually a decision outside of even our local jurisdiction. So the school may provide information that's helpful for decision makers about how our bus transportation works and the routes and where kids get dropped off and picked up in bus stops, but it's really not under the authority of the Board of Ed to determine where flashing rates are on state roads or even local roads. It would be a local decision with, I believe, our town planning department and our police department.
But, okay, now like if you look at Pleasant Valley School right now, at around 2:15 in the afternoon, all right? All the buses come in and all the cars come in, and yet outside on Ellington Road, there must be at least 12 or 14 cars that are blocking traffic and everything else, all right? And I'm wondering, is this going to happen with the new school? Because it looks like it's about the same amount of space for the buses to go in and turn around and everything else.
No, we're very excited for that problem to be corrected when the new school opens. One of our major reasons why we went to the community with this 10-year plan was to have better vehicle and pedestrian safety at all of our schools. At the 3 new schools, there is a great improvement with the separation of parent drop-off and bus drop-off. Pleasant Valley, being the last school, is obviously still operating under the conditions that were set forth in a community many decades ago when parents weren't driving their kids as frequently, and so the culture has changed in terms of what pickup and drop-off looks like. We are well aware of the issues, and we've been working very closely with the South Windsor Police Department on trying to address the traffic congestion. The reality is, and we have some improvements planned for next year, but there's limited things we can do right now. When this new site is developed, by separating parent and bus drop-off, and there's plenty of space now for the 11 to 12 buses that have been identified on the plan, it will look completely different than our current situation, which we agree is quite problematic.
Now, on special events where you get more traffic coming in with more people coming in, would you have a traffic policeman out there or something else to guide, make sure that doesn't happen, or?
I think the way the site is designed that we wouldn't need that kind of a resource, but sure, whenever there's been events at schools, at any schools, not just elementary, if we thought a police presence was needed, we do contract with the police to come and support us.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Okay. From what I'm hearing with these with this spreadsheet, I think you documented all the things that you're willing to either do or add as an alt GMP. But I want to go over them line by line and make sure I understand, because there's still some that I'm going to recommend we use for approval conditions. So whoever would like to come up here to the podium. Okay, number one, the asphalt walk from the gym to the lower ball fields lot. You've got parking down there and, well, let me go first to your approval or your memorandum of understanding, I believe it is, correct, with the church?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that going to be in perpetuity? What happens if the church property gets sold?
I do not, well, I can't speak to it, so I'm going to have to step aside.
So the attorneys that wrote up the agreement actually are calling it a license agreement, just for clarification. And the way it's written, that it would be renewable upon 3 years. You're correct. If that site changes ownership, that would change the circumstances of that. It may be used by a future owner that would continue to allow it, depending on how it's used. But yes, this agreement is with that church, and we can't, promise what future owners of that site could do.
Right, so that's not something that is a guarantee. And to have this walkway down to that parking lot just makes sense for any events. So
we, in the memo, we identified what administration had shared with us as the 3 key events, as was requested at our last meeting. The 3 events do not exceed 300 in loading. As a result, utilizing the striped areas at 180, the curbside parking that is available, and the grass field area at the back of the site, we can exceed 300.
right, and on that grass field area, how many cars are you thinking of parking?
71.
Okay. And yet, you didn't even show a curb cut to get to it.
Well, there's a mountable curb. It's associated because that is the circumnavigation route for emergency vehicles. We can work through that, but there is a area there for entry to the parking.
Okay. I know the applicant on the past school projects has been very hesitant to do any parking on the grass, especially the field areas, but I can't imagine that they'd want to have parking on the play area, especially if it's said by the commissioners that, past driving on the grass. What if in that area we used a different type of grass?
Reinforced turf is what they use. It's Rensselaer Field.
Microphone, please.
At Rensselaer Field, all the parking around it, I did that with what's called reinforced turf fibers. So if you're gonna utilize that for an outdoor play area, you would also incorporate reinforced fibers.
We have had discussion within our design team relative to reinforcement. Past projects have not done it. As we're indicating, we do hope to have the agreement with the church follow through. I understand it's not in perpetuity, but it would far exceed any requirements for parking on the site while it is in effect.
As long as
Correct. While
you
it's in
use the
effect.
grass area?
No, sir, without the grass area.
Without
Once
the
we have
grass area?
Yes, once we have the MOU, it's an exchange of 161 spaces available at the church parking versus 71 available on the grass.
Or the license, whatever it's called?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we would be able to meet the parking requirements at the upper tier area.
With the waiver, correct? There's a waiver
Sir,
proposed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it includes our application remains consistent with the 71 spaces in effect.
Right,
But yes, it does require a waiver consideration.
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I really think this is good planning to have the access to that lower lot, which is, I think, a heck of a shorter walk than going the other way. I could be wrong, but,
It would include a stair and.
a what?
A stair. It would not be something due to the elevation change that would be first choice by anybody arriving on campus. They'll want to park close, they'll want to park within level if possible. That's what we're affording them in our plan. We have a significant amount of sidewalk within this site. These sidewalks are maintained by South Windsor Public Schools staff. That is the janitorial staff, usually an individual. It's a lot. And we're adding yet another walkway to a parking lot that is not needed, and it will incorporate a stair. That's a heavy lift. And that is part of the reason why we
How
asked for
many,
your
how
consideration.
many risers are you talking in that stair?
You had a rough number on this the other day. Thank you.
There's 30 feet of grade change from that parking lot to the finished floor of the building. The elevation difference from the church parking lot to the building is much less. So we haven't planned for it, but with 30 feet of grade change, to make that an accessible walk is next to impossible, given the length that would have to be between the two. So, you know, we could do some sloped walk, but you would be looking at, I would say, at least 30 risers to take up 15 feet of that rise, and then the rest would be sloped walk. And now that I'm saying that, it's probably going to be even more risers than that. So, again, we just feel with the location, that's why the grass parking was considered more convenient to the school at the same level as the school, that the location of that adjacent parking lot, even though it's on the same site, really isn't conducive for event parking.
So you're not really putting any connection to that southwest lot to the school itself, correct?
There is a accessible ramp which follows down to the southern portion of the site. It connects to the Muriel Drive walkthrough. It's a short connection from there to the parking area. That would be an accessible route, but you can see the amount of run in that distance is significantly greater than the other walkway proposed. And as such, it can be done in walkway rather than ramp or stair.
Okay. All right. Bus turnaround, I'll concede that. Number 2. Number 1, extend concrete walk for 1 additional bus. I'll concede that, seeing as I believe you're saying you're going to need 12 buses instead of 16 or 17. Am I correct with that? No.
Yes, sir. We were able to confirm 11 to 12 buses. It was also noted that the 11 or 12 typically are not on site at the same time. And certainly the 16 to 17 that we show is far in excess of what's needed to support the school.
Okay, I want to make sure that gets into the minutes. So that's, number 4 was just info, really. Number 5, sidewalk along Long Hill, which is shown in red over here. Could you tell me your stance on that, please?
This is a sidewalk like the sidewalk at Ellington that would not be reimbursable per the state standards for the educational funding that's being received. So this is fully on the burden carried by the town. That's what is meant by not within property limits. The burden of the additional removal of snow is yet another. And then lastly, Long Hill Road as a system does not provide a good walkable opportunity for students. As a matter of fact, it was identified in a meeting with the transportation group that any roadway that exceeds 35 miles an hour, they do not have students walk along those roadways, or do not.
They do not what? You're trailing
recommend
off.
Excuse
If you
me.
could raise this up a little?
Do not recommend students walking along those roadways.
Okay. So, Jeff, what's the speed limit on Long Hill?
I don't know exactly. I would guess it's 25 or 30 miles an hour, maybe 30 miles an hour. Could be 35. 35?
Pardon? Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna leave that for now. I'm just gonna. I believe 6, 7, and 8 you've already addressed. Asphalt walk from southern existing path to school. Number 9, can include as an alternate bid. Is that GMP alternate bid?
No, this is pre-GMP. We can incorporate it pre-GMP.
So that one's all set, correct?
We can include it as it states here. Yes, will be included as an add alternate.
It will be included, correct?
As an add alternate,
As
yes,
an
sir.
add alternate.
Yes, sir.
Clarify that for me, please. Will that be done 100% or not?
It will be done due to availability of funds following the receipt of the bids on bid day to meet the requirements of the school.
Okay, so this is from the southern existing path to school. I believe it's that,
It's a relatively small connection. It moves from that southern pathway, which
right.
currently is,
So that should be, in my opinion, part of our approval condition. Okay, so.
if I can identify again, the school does not recommend use of that because of the condition of Long Hill Road as a system. It's not a walking system that they would encourage students to enter on.
It's an existing path.
That is not encouraged by the school to be used, is what I'm suggesting to you, sir.
Kids will naturally.
Microphone.
Whether the school decides, kids are like cattle, they'll take the path of least resistance. If this pathway's been in use for years, the reason it's a path is because they're using it. Just because you tell them not to, doesn't mean they're going to. If this neighborhood allows these kids to use this pathway, they're gonna continue to use it. All Bart's asking is to give them an access point up to the walkway, that's all.
Excuse me, that path is actually in terrible condition already. It was once paved. It hasn't been maintained. It's actually kind of a nightmare. And we used to use it for the bike program, but we've stopped using it because of the condition of that pathway there. I concur with not using it. I think.
Keeping it?
What?
And not upkeeping it?
I mean, I would let something grow there so it's not even a path.
That doesn't even make sense, Steve. If there's kids currently going to school that way, why would you not want to support that?
Because there's no place on, I mean, Long Hill Road is, you know, we don't even take the kids on when we do the bike program, we don't take them on that road because you know, we take them in the neighborhoods, but not, you know, not down that path and not down that road. You know, I think the concern about the speed of that road is what we're talking about here, and we don't want to encourage kids to use that path.
Okay, but at that point, if school is in session or during certain hours, I believe it's a reduced speed limit, correct? Or not?
No.
How about in front of Pleasant Valley School?
Yes, in front of Pleasant Valley School, where the main driveway is. In front, on Ellington Road,
Right.
yes.
So why wouldn't it be the same thing on Long Hill? And why wouldn't we mandate that condition?
Well, right now, it's not because there's no school driveway. If, I don't know if it would be mandated as part of this, it would be up to the police department to reduce that, reduce the speed limit signs in a school zone. So it'd be a new school zone, basically.
Right.
That would be introduced. Police department would have to agree to that, recommend it to the state would have to agree to it. So that could be a
For Long
condition.
Hill?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, for any school zone, yes.
Okay.
So that could be a condition that it be reviewed and evaluated as such, yes.
Okay. Michelle, could you put that down as a note, please?
Chairman Pasco, I just thought it might be helpful, just as context. So I did ask the principal approximately how many walkers we have at Pleasant Valley, and she said it's approximately 12. So it's a very small number of kids that are walkers. And the other thing that may be helpful, just when you think about these things, is our transportation department has indicated that there are, many schools will have what we call walkers that we deem as walkers. We tell them you're within the walking distance, it's a safe path, so we're not providing transportation. There are no residences that qualify for that status. So every Pleasant Valley student would be entitled to, they may choose to walk, but they would be entitled. But it is a very small number of students that are walking, and we did ask the principal about that pathway. I mean, I'll be clear, it's a small thing, it's not a huge objection, but she is concerned about encouraging the use for the reasons that Mr. Wagner has said. So that was something she wasn't looking to encourage. Again, this is not out of all the things tonight, I don't think this is a big deal, but I just thought the context of the number of walkers and the lack of use of that may be helpful to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Add 2 crosswalks on Long Hill. No flashing lights.
Did you skip number 10? It's kind of small.
Identify with, that was information.
Just, we had a comment from Mr. Dickinson that was recommending wider sidewalks, so yes or no on that?
Okay, that particular one was information. They just identified how wide it is. Now, we can address that when we get back to it, but that, I believe that number 10 was just information, correct, Jim?
Yes, in the attachment that's offered in your packet, all of the walkways are identified. And I can just offer the walkway leading into the site from Ellington Road to the school is 8 feet wide. Across the front face facing Ellington where the parent drop-off is, that's 8 feet wide. Along the northern edge of the building, which is the pop-I-pop drop-off, that is 8 feet wide. And on the east side of the building where the bus drop-off is, that gets up to, I believe, 10 feet wide. So that gives you a sense of the sizing of the sidewalks that are supportive of the school programs.
Okay, thank you. Number 11, add 2 crosswalks on Long Hill Road. No flashing lights. I just want to state the intent of that is to give safe crossing to any students that do want to walk. It's paint on the road. What that says to the public who's driving by is you have a responsibility to yield to pedestrians. I know for a fact if you cross the road and you're not crossing in a crosswalk, and you get hit, that's basically your own fault. I think it's part of the charge of the planning and zoning to address safe paths to school. I think the Board of Ed would be supportive of that also. I know under different conditions. I really think that we need to give kids a way. I believe the reason that they don't encourage people to walk to school is because there are no sidewalks. It's, you know, it is crazy to have kids on the streets without sidewalks walking to school. I don't doubt that. But the reason that I proposed it was because there will be some kids who are going to walk, whether you like it or not. And I want to give them safe routes to school. So at this time, I'm going to just
If I may, in areas where there are groups of students and there are systems in place that can support walking, the school has made effort to make connection to that. An example of that is Muriel Drive, where we have the handicapped accessible walkway that comes down and meets that area. Another example is along Ellington Road, that significant investment in sidewalk along Ellington Road, because there's expectation that that will develop into someday, hopefully, a system that's safe for walkers. But as we suggested at this time, with the speed limits that are on Long Hill Road and the fact that the school system does not encourage walkers, and there are very few walkers that come in from that area, we would recommend, as we do in our notes, that there be consideration for it to be a recommendation that's reviewed with police and town engineer and, where applicable, OSTA. I know that would not be an OSTA, but where applicable, OSTA for these types of requests.
And I understand what you're saying and your position, but as a planning and zoning commissioner, I think it's my responsibility to work towards the development of these to the fullest that I can. And to just ignore Long Hill when we're addressing it on Ellington, I think is a little bit short-sighted. But I'm gonna move on from number 11. I'm just gonna put a mark on it to address it further. Number 12, you got the proposed flashing light crosswalk at main entrance to Ellington Road. I want to understand what the current plan is after build-out, what that crosswalk is going to look like, or what the proposal is. I want to understand what the exact proposal is for that crossing or lack of crossing. across to, yeah, to, what's that street there?
So
Parkview.
at the intersection, as you suggest, there is proposed stripe walkway. It connects to the Parkview Drive cul-de-sac. It will have appropriate signage identifying school zone. This will be reviewed with OSTA and obviously approved by OSTA, all of these improvements. But that is what is expected as part of the base scope of work that's proposed.
Okay, is there a proposed crossing guard or anything? What's the norm for something like that for the school system? I know when I was a kid, walking to school on May Road, I walked about a mile when I was in second grade. And once you got closer to the school, there were crossing guards. I don't know if that, I don't typically drive during those hours, but
It depends on the school, depends on the site. There is a crossing guard, for example, at Orchard Hill, I think in 1 or 2 locations. Some schools don't have a crossing guard at all, depending on the situation. So with this being new, with the new sidewalks and greater access, we may determine that a crossing guard is needed for that crosswalk that's being proposed. Our transportation coordinator would determine if there are any students that would be coming from that direction. So each year they assess where the students are living, where their bus stops are. Again, Pleasant Valley just happens to be a school that just has far fewer walkers than other schools because all of this, as we're discussing tonight, the speeds of the roads along Ellington and Long Hill, none of the residences qualify as mandatory walkers because they exceed the speed limit that we require walkers and also the distance. So there's a distance, as you just noted, and then there's a speed that the transportation department considers when determining who are what we'll call required walkers. And Pleasant Valley is just a school setting that doesn't have any required walkers, and as I said, based on people's choice, the principal indicated that it's only about a dozen kids that are choosing to walk. That may change, and we would just assess the situation about where in fact we do need crossing guards wherever. And just, I think it might be helpful just to clarify, I thought the recommendation regarding crosswalks and the flashing lights wasn't a resistance to doing them, but more to say that we really think they require further study about where they would be placed with the engineering department and the police department. So it's not so much a resistance to having them, but more hoping that the conditions tonight would say, requiring further study with OSTA, local PD, and the engineering department. So if that's helpful clarification.
yeah. Well, I look and I know Pleasant Valley is a state road, and I understand crossing guards and crosswalks, but I also know that the crossing guards are only there during school hours. And that's something that is going to be used 7 days a week by kids in the area, trying to ride their bike over to the school and play on the playground that hopefully will be built, or even cutting through to go see their friends on Long Hill on their bike. That's a fact of life. And I know I am going to suggest that we look at the, if nothing else, a strong recommendation to have flashing light crosswalk there. But I'd also like to, before we draft up these approval conditions. I know we have a rough draft right now. I'd like to get the town attorney involved because I want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. We've had issues with stuff like that before, so I want to make sure that we address any approval in the correct way, especially dealing with the state of Connecticut. So that's where I stand on that. Just make a note here. Okay, 21 through 23. 23.1. You're talking about adding a 7% design fee for whatever that might cost additional for what? I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying there.
So possibly Matt Montana may want to weigh in on this, but I can reiterate that the original RFQ that was put forward and ultimately RFP for design services was in support of the educational specification and the school itself. As we were brought to the RFP level from the RFQ level, it was identified that the remaining firms basically do master planning for the site to give an idea of how it might be organized and what possibly may fit. And so what is indicated in your package is an example of that work. It's a test fit telling you that a baseball field coupled with a multi-purpose field and a smaller recreational area could fit in there with a reconfiguration of the parking to support it. That was not part of the base scope of work, but that test fit was made part of it. And what these cost centers represent is simply a budgetary estimate for what the costs might be should it go out to procure services for design professionals to be able to create the ad alternate package. So that's what both item 22.1, those are design services relative to the baseball field. 23.1 are the design services relative to the...
Excuse me for 1 minute. 22.1 was item 14, which was the gate.
On page 3 of the document?
Page 3 of the document refers to item 14, 22.1.
Okay, on the very bottom of the document, there in the center, it's paginated at that point.
Which, pardon me?
At the bottom in the center.
Right, 3 of 3.
You have 3 of 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Under the item column, these are items starting at the top, 21, 22, 22.1, 23, 23.1.
Just read 22.1.
22.1, professional services design fee for item 14.
Okay, now let's look at item 14.
Sorry, folks.
Okay, so,
no, sir.
okay, and I was just looking at the design in general. Doesn't matter which item it is, I just wanted to understand that.
My apologies.
Okay,
to be clear, it simply addresses the one before it, meaning those professional services are associated with item 22, not item 14.
Okay.
And if you drop down to item 23.1, those professional services are associated with item 23.
Okay, that
not
clears
number
it up.
15.
Thank you.
I apologize for the confusion.
Okay. Identify special events. Number 15, upgrade timber guardrail to meet Merritt Parkway standard. Did you have an issue with that?
Given the design speeds anticipated within the site and the fact that the railing identified as a highway standard crash-tested railing,
What are you proposing for railing there?
it's a heavy-duty timber rail. It's 12 by 12 posts and Dave, the horizontal member, 5 by 8 horizontal member. I mean, it's a significant structure, and the posts are 8 feet on center. I mean, it would be tough, given the angle of the driveway, to fit a car between the posts.
And what's the drop gonna be there? Do you know?
Approximately, Ben is flipping quickly. I don't want to put a number on it.
Jeff, was that something that you were recommending?
It did come from my recommendations, because we've recommended this for other developments in town. I don't personally know of any timber guide rail that meets the DOT crash standard, but, you know, SLR may have something in mind, other
Okay.
than the Merritt Parkway guardrail.
Yeah, and one of the issues we have in town is wood with termites, and I know it'd probably be pressure treated or whatever.
It is a 12 by 12 pressure-treated post.
Yeah, I would like to stick with what we normally do in town. So, I don't think that's that big of a bump there. But part of that, I did have an issue with is in that, which is the western side of the entrance drive where you're proposing to park cars. I want to understand what your safe access is for the people that park those cars in getting into the building. Can somebody explain that to me? Because typically, if cars are going to be parked next to the curb, there's going to be a sidewalk there so that they can have safe egress and they're not walking in the street. And I'm looking at this SS1 drawing with the colored schematic or whatever. But, you know, you stop the sidewalk because of, I believe, the grade.
Excuse me? I missed that.
I
last
said, I
piece.
believe you stopped the sidewalk because of the grade, but
Our intention, which is described on PS1, for the parking lot area on the western side of the site, is that people can exit their car from the parking, travel to the west, be collected on a side.
excuse me, what are you reading from?
This document, PS1.
Where's,
PS1 was offered
okay,
in
this
your
is
packet.
PS1 here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, proceed, please.
So in PS1, people arriving from Ellington Road and entering into that parking area
Yep,
park their vehicle, and they will be traveling to the west and collected on the sidewalk to the west of that parking area. They then can travel either
wait a
to
minute,
the,
how did they get to that sidewalk?
from the parking area directly to the sidewalk.
Can you approach and show me exactly what you're talking about? I want to make sure we understand, I'm talking people that park right here, correct?
Oh, you mean in an overflow event?
Yeah. How do they get safely into the school?
I would imagine an overflow event would have them walk in this entry point up to this walkway and then up into the main entrance or the gymnasium entrance,
So-
depending upon the event.
And do you feel that's safe, that people are going to be crossing in front of
This
all
is-
this traffic?
This is addressing 3 major events a year where the parking levels get out to this level. This is not a regular parking scenario at all. Again, responding to the question around specialty events held at the school.
Right.
There have been identified 3, 2 of which would enter into numbers.
Well, you're talking 3, but times 3, correct? Because some of these are segmented where there's going to be 3 different groups of 170.
As they run it today, yes, sir. There are
Right.
waves of people attending the event.
Okay. Watch your step when you step down. I just don't see that as safe as people walking in could be crossing in front of all the traffic that is going to be coming in for the special event. How many cars are you thinking of parking there, possibly?
Curbside parking in total represents 56 spaces. David will run a quick check on approximately how many might be out on that outer curb area.
Well, I think, oh, okay. I see a couple over by the pre-K,
Yes,
or a few.
and there's some on the bus drop-off loop as well.
Yeah.
We have some heavy-duty measuring and calculating happening.
That represents 350 feet along that road that currently does not have a sidewalk, is equivalent to approximately 16 parking spaces parallel.
How many?
16.
16, 350?
350 feet divided by 22.
By how many?
22.
How big is a normal parking space?
18.
You're not
When you
9 by 20?
When you're parking parallel like that, you need additional room to be able to maneuver to get
Okay.
out. So a standard parallel parking space is typically 8 or 9 feet wide by 22 feet long.
Okay, so how many were you saying?
16.
16.
So
I'm still seeing them in the road, though. I'm having a hard time getting over that. I'm gonna move on, but I am gonna just make a note of that. What number was that, Kevin? Closer. I could just list that under 19, I think, express concerns. Front parking, I'll say. Okay. Courtyard irrigation, I don't think I need to address that. Question raised regarding fire drills. How many kids total in the school?
803 total,
And how many staff?
55 registered staff, 127 total staff.
Wow, so you've got, say, 900 people that might be observing a fire drill? just
Absolutely.
Ballpark,
Yes,
okay?
sir.
Could you maybe just suggest some places where that would be? I mean, would it be maybe broken up into 3 different areas as far as like pre-K and,
This particular item, as we strategized how best to be responsive, the school principal was able to contact the fire marshal. They reviewed the plans once again. They're both very familiar with them, but they reviewed them once again with this message in mind. And they confirmed that they had no concerns with the amount of space that's available to them and the availability of having evacuation and assembly for fire drills addressed. They will ultimately produce plans. Obviously, that's something that does occur, but they want to have the opportunity to work through the process as they have in the other schools. And part of that is seeing it in operation over some time with students in the building to modify and address the plan as needed.
okay, and I'm just looking at 900 people on,
There's currently 600 people within the school. It's not, I mean, it is a large elementary school building, and it is larger than what is there, but it is not a significant doubling or tripling of your population in the building.
right, and what I was saying is 900 people on a snow-covered day, where are they gonna stand? Or, you know, God forbid, a major event. But, okay, that probably is more for the Board of Ed and the fire marshal. But I hope, you know, that somebody's got a good plan to address that. Okay. Let me look at my notes here. Steve Council. Going back, Ben, could you step up to the microphone, please? The side shield on the lights, is that just the normal black sky compliant, or is this an additional shield?
This is an additional shield. Let me see. Again, our firm didn't prepare the lighting plan, so I'm not 100% familiar with the light that was spec'd.
Yep.
But all the lights are full cutoff lights as are required per the regulation. This would be an additional shield. Some of the lights have a shield that's visible behind the whole fixture because of LED technologies. Some of the LED fixtures have basically a shield around each LED bulb per se. With the particular one that's specified here, I'm not sure which one would be the case, but it is in addition to meeting the requirements of the regulations for full cutoff fixtures.
Okay, so it is an additional shield.
Correct.
Is that something we have to put in our approval condition?
I think it's shown on the plans currently, and we're approving this set of plans, so
Okay.
we don't have to specify
Fair enough.
that.
Okay. Okay, commissioners. Does anyone have anything else that they, put your light on? Commissioner Flagg.
I got one more question concerning number 25, maybe Dr. Carter again. Is there any school in South Windsor at all that has fire drills?
Yes, we're required by law to hold 10 drills a year, and we have to submit to the state a record of all drills that are conducted, both our interior drills that we do as well as the exterior drills that are being discussed tonight.
So that means Pleasant Valley would have to have a fire drill every once in a while.
10 to be precise, and they happen every year, and we would be in a lot of trouble if we didn't submit our documentation to the prior to submit it every year.
All right, thank you.
It's a lot of fire drills. I don't remember having that many when I was a kid. Commissioner Foley.
All right, again, this is for, I think it's Dave or Ben, but when, I'm not gonna rehash the alternate bid, if it's not accepted for the ball fields, and those are, I'm gonna say that's pretty much amenities, correct? That is the base bid, the grading, the lawn area, whether it be terraced or whatever, they will be usable playing surfaces. But the only part that's missing is the amenities, the backstops, ball safety netting, fencing.
And some other infrastructure, under drains and the like. Yeah. So yes,
So in the base bid then, when you say under drainage would be a line item, so not to, I don't want to say this, in the alternate bid for the athletic field upgrades, so we're gonna get ball fields, correct? In the base bid, we're gonna have playing surfaces for this community. This end of town is gonna have, at their school, they're gonna have a grass playing surfaces. I don't wanna exceed 1.5%. You guys can figure out how with your engineering and your cuts and fills and your excess material, but 1.5% on, no matter what, you guys can make that fit. But it's gonna be the amenities that will be selected, such as the backstop will be at alternate number 1. At alternate number 2 for the athletic fields will be ball safety netting along Ellington Road that I spoke of. So if there is an event, youth soccer, the ball's not getting kicked towards the parking lot, which could roll out to Ellington Road, which could cause havoc. So that'd be alternate number 2. Alternate number 3 would be whatever, bases, you know what I'm saying? So
with perhaps one exception,
Go.
Commissioner Foley, and that would be that under the base bid, all of those elements would be included. There wouldn't be fencing as alternate 1 under the alternate bid.
Right, it would be one package.
One package.
So after the guaranteed maximum price is achieved for the amenities, as you so put it, for the ball fields, it would be one package going out to bid, assuming that the funding is available for all that.
Okay.
So another way to say it too is when the base bid of the school is done for the multi-purpose field, in order for somebody to go out there and use it as a soccer field, all you'd have to do is put down some lines and some soccer goals, and you got a ball field.
That's what I'm asking for. In the base bid, that you're gonna have established turf at a 1.5% cross, not to exceed 1.5% cross.
If I may, with that, while we're on that topic, as Mr. Dixon mentioned, with under drains, this area, with the site and development of this site, it will have excess amount of topsoil. So those field areas may have thicker profile topsoil than you typically would. So again, you could use it as a soccer field, but because of that, you know, we wouldn't recommend keeping it at 1.5% because of the topsoil profile unless under drains are put in. And again, you know, not a part of the base bid for the school project. But still, as a playing surface for a soccer field, all you need to do is add line striping and soccer goals, and you got a soccer field. Obviously, the Little League field or the softball field is a little more complex because it's going to be all turf, no bases, no skinned infield, no backstop, you know, no fencing. That's a little more complex. Also, the adjustments to the parking that Mr. Dixon alluded to are not in the base bid. Accessible walks from that parking up to those fields is also not included.
You wouldn't consider putting the under drainage component, so it does become useful, and all all you need is lines, no backstops, no nothing, but would that be, I mean, reasonable to say that we take this land and put the under drainage in it in the base bid?
Completely would not be acceptable from the state as far as reimbursement. As far as, you know, we're able to provide a level playing field and a level turf area to balance the site. But, you know, that's going into the establishment of the athletic field. So that would be outside the scope for reimbursement from the state.
Well, then, I guess we'll have to take our chances with cultural practices with deep tine aeration, but what I don't want to have happen is exactly what happened in the front of Avery Street or PR Smith, is where you have a grade that's useless to everybody except for parking. So that's why I'm reiterating the percentage of pitch, so we don't end up with what I requested last time. I requested, which was my biggest mistake. So if we say we require, you understand, picking up what I'm putting down?
We understand, but to reiterate what Dr. Carter mentioned in her opening statements, with many of these items, it's not that.
I'm just talking about grading, Ben. I'm not talking about adding the drainage. That'd be an odd alternate. I'm saying when it comes to the grading, there is no money. That's zero bearing on this.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about requiring under drains at that point, so.
I'd like to see that as an add alternate, but as far as the grading, again, so it doesn't become PR Smith's front lawn, the great lawn that can't be used for any kind of recreation. I want this to be able to be used for recreational purposes, okay? That's a requirement.
Okay, Ben. Oh, okay, you're talking. I got two other things. I want to talk about soil, and has the soil been tested? And you talked about there might be excess soil, and I'm just wondering what's gonna happen to that soil.
There will be no soil that leaves the site, and it'll actually be in the bid documents to that case. So as we've designed this, we believe that it is a balanced site. It'll be a requirement within the bid documents that not a spoonful of soil is to leave the site, and it'll all stay on this site.
Okay. And we had a member of the public come forward and talk about an 8-foot bituminous multi-use path, 8-foot or 10-foot instead of the sidewalk out front. And he gave testimony of some prices that he got per square foot, and it might be a cost savings. Is that something, I believe you were sent that letter, correct? Or?
Oh, we did not receive that letter in advance, but I heard the testimony.
Okay.
One thing that wasn't into consideration of that is that in order to widen that sidewalk along Ellington Road because of the grades near the parent drop-off, it would require a retaining wall in that area. So when you're adding in the cost of a retaining wall, that certainly adds to the cost significantly to widen that sidewalk to an 8 or 10-foot walk.
Okay. So you're saying that cost savings would probably be shot. What about, you know, you've had concerns on a number of these items about snow removal. That would probably make snow removal a lot easier though, correct?
Yeah, it certainly would, but a 5-foot walk has been implemented in other schools throughout town, and they're satisfied with that width as well, so.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, is any other, I don't see any lights on. Anybody else have anything they wanted to bring forward? Steve, did we get the issue that you had mentioned? Was it the walkway? No, he did car charging, but he had mentioned, I think the walkway, the one 18 or whatever, that we said we
Yeah,
would
I
address
think
later.
you were just going over what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was interested
Okay.
in. I'm happy
I
with
didn't know
it.
if that was the one you brought up, but yeah, okay. All right. So, given this late hour, and I had asked if we could have legal review approval conditions. I think I'd like to get together with Michelle and go over draft approval conditions and then run them by legal before we proceed, okay? So would we need to have the public hearing open?
I think at this point you would close your public hearing and then we could bring back that to the meeting for your decision.
Right, okay, sounds good.
Wouldn't be anything new other than what we've discussed at the meeting at this point.
Right, okay. So, first off, town staff, any reason keep the public hearing open?
No?
No? Okay. Commissioners? No? Okay. Then, I'll accept the motion to close the public hearing.
Move we close the public hearing?
Second.
We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of close the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Our next item on our agenda, and I apologize for running so late, application 21-29P, Davis re-subdivision.
Like me to read fast?
That'd be great, Peter, thank you.
Okay. For the record, Peter DeMalley, President of Design Professionals, offices here at South Windsor. Also with me tonight, Suzanne Choate, former Planning and Zoning Commission member, Town of South Windsor, who is our Senior Project Manager and Director and a Director level at Design Professionals. Lynn Davis, the applicant, is in the rear row there, back left. She's here as well. So let me make this as quick as I can. I'll read a little bit faster than normal. Thank you very much for your indulgence. It's a 2.681 acre tract in the A20 residential zone on the south side of Pleasant Valley Road, opposite Woodside Drive, between VMP and Route 30. The property, closer, of course, to VMP. Property was acquired with an old abandoned house, which is to be raised, and the existing driveway that serves that house will be removed and replaced to the east. We're proposing two frontage lots. Again, this is 3-lot subdivision. We're proposing 2 frontage lots, conventional in size. Lot 1, the westerly lot, is 25,328 square feet in size. 20,000 square feet, of course, is a minimum with 100 feet of frontage. We have about 138 feet of frontage, and it's about 183 feet deep. The second lot to the east of that, along the frontage, is just over 20,000 square feet in size with 110 feet of frontage, again, 110 required, same depth as the other lot that I just mentioned. Also, lot 3 is an interior lot, 1.64 acres, within 100th of the size of my lot, which is relatively large, roughly 150 feet by 450 feet in size, excluding, plus, of course, the access way. And the access way is proposed to be owned in fee by the owner of Lot 3. And this excluding the access way, this lot number 3, the interior lot, is more than 3 times the size of an A20 conventional lot as required. So we have, to spare, we have an additional 6,188 square feet. So it is, again, a 3-lot subdivision. The homes that are being proposed for this is a little bit different. They're a little bit larger than most of the homes in the immediate neighborhood. The lot sizes are larger than most of the homes in the immediate neighborhood as well. All the homes are proposed to be 2-story colonials. The smallest is proposed to be a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial of about 2,000 square feet. That's one of the frontage lots. Another frontage lot will be approximately 2,400 square feet, and that's 4 bedrooms with 2.5 baths, so all have 2.5 baths. And then the third lot, one other thing, lots 1 and 2 will have side load garages. And lot 3 will also have a side load garage, although it's oriented differently, is a 2,800 to 3,000 square foot house in the back with a 3-car garage. Lot 3 is proposed to be the residence for the applicant, Lynn and her husband, the Davis family. They have 2 boys. By the way, she coaches hockey, her son's team. And that will face east, which is an important cultural thing for her and her family, that captures the morning sun and consistent with Feng Shui culture. As requested by town staff, we've doubled the Lot 3 front yard setback from 10 feet to 20 feet. There is no specific standard in your regulations, from 10 feet to 20 feet. And it goes at there's an offset, so the farthest one away from Pleasant Valley Road, which is going to affect us most, where the house is oriented. So we've doubled it from 10 feet to 20 feet to accommodate the large home that they propose to build. Not 30 feet as Michelle had requested. If we do the 30 feet, it'll reduce the house potential length from 70 feet to 60 feet, and we'll square it off more. We prefer not to do that. Lynn they've already selected a house that they'd like to put there. Again, it will face east. The driveways, the easterly driveway, as you can see the exhibit to my right, to your left, the easterly driveway will be shared, half of it, roughly halfway back to the end of the entrance driveway to lot number 2, a side load garage. That will be a common easement at that point. There'll be an easement actually in favor of lot 2 up to that point over lot 3 access way. And it'll be 18 feet beyond that to lot 3 interior lot. That's at the request of the fire marshal, is my understanding. The westerly driveway, so the easterly driveway will be serving the interior lot and the lot number 2, the easterly lot along the frontage. And then the westerly driveway entirely on lot number 1 will be serving 2 conventional lots, one proposed lot, our lot number 1, and will be paved to 16 feet in width to serve the proposed home. And then the existing house to the west, the existing condition will remain gravel, and it serves to the back, goes actually rear of the house. And beyond that to the butter's lot. They have a shared driveway agreement. It's already recorded in the land records between the applicant and the abutter to the west. Shared driveway is, as I mentioned, is entirely in lot 1. Frontage, as it stands today, has 2 driveways. One, the shared one to the west, on the west side of lot number 1, and then also the one a little bit to the right of center serving the existing old house. And so as proposed, we're going to end up with 2 driveways. We have 2 now, and the frontage will have 2 driveways when we're done, both shared driveways. We propose to screen the rear house from lot 2 and the abutter to the east via arborvitae hedgerow. On lot number 3, the applicant will preserve trees within what we're proposing, at least at the minimum, within the rear yard, which is 40 feet. With one exception, that's where the house gets fairly close to the rear property line, 40 feet. Where the house is, we need to go around the house, so we're proposing clear 20 feet around the house. And that's to accommodate the home construction. The rear yard, that's the west side of lot 3, so their backyard. We will have some trees removed so they can have a backyard. One of our landscape architects, Glenn Martin, was out there today, and the better specimen trees are along the southerly property line, in particular in the backyard there. And that's where we're proposing to keep them. Inside, they've got more sumacs, things of that nature, not as good. So a lot of those will be removed for their family activities in their backyard, and they have an active family, sports active family. Existing town sanitary sewer easement is along the western property line of lot 1, and it also goes under the westerly shared driveway, also on lot 1. We withdraw our request for waiver to section B4A. That really only applies when you have a side street on a collector street. This does not have that application, therefore withdrawing it's not applicable. That's if you have an alternate access way, and we don't have an alternate access street. We propose to save along the frontage of 15, I think it's a 15 or larger inch oak along the frontage, and there are 2 Japanese red maples. One of those is close to the old house. That'll probably have to be relocated by machine all along the frontage. And then we will also have, we're planting within the street tree easement additional trees. The rear house is on a north-south axis, again, so it can be facing east. So it doesn't have the appearance of a stack effect at all in this particular subdivision. So as you go up the driveway, the first thing you see will be the end of the house with the garage, 3-car garage. This plan is consistent with the special exception review criteria, including plan of conservation development consistency. We think it's complementary of the neighborhood, no question. Meets interior lot requirements. Land is physically suited for the proposed use. There are no wetlands on the site, no adverse environmental impacts that we're proposing, no adverse traffic impacts. It's not adversely impacting adjoining lots. We're preserving property values. Indeed, we expect with these nice homes that are going to be put up. In fact, do you already have them? They've been distributed? Yes. Oh, they have. Oh, you have them. Okay. I think they're attractive houses, colonials, and I think they will help to not only maintain property values, but also increase property values in this area. A vast improvement over what's on the property at this time, especially with the removal of that abandoned house that had been abandoned long before it was acquired by the applicant. So 3 beautiful colonials, and we think they're going to be nice. And there, other than the old house, the eyesore, there are no historic factors that we're aware of on the property. A parcel was created prior to 1990, which is important for an interior lot. And also the lot has a lot width of more than 1.5 times the 820 zone, which is also important. Sidewalks. In response to town staff comments, we have looked at this issue. We recognize this is a high priority area for sidewalks. We drive by it every day on our way to work, all of us. Per the Plan of Conservation Development and also in terms of neighborhood need, there are attractions such as VMP just to the west of us. There's a 7-Eleven down at the end of the street, not that far away. Accordingly, and we have not shared this with town staff, it's on our exhibit. We'll have to work this out with the town engineer. Hopefully you'll consider it as a condition of approval that we add to the plans a 5-foot concrete sidewalk within the town right-of-way, 1 foot off the property line as per the town standard. And we're proposing to do that, a 5-foot concrete walk, and that's about 268 feet. And I think you require that the sidewalk extend the width of the driveway as well, the common driveways would be the case. So we're proposing that, unless you want us to stop at the driveways, but I think you want us to normally go across the driveway with a concrete sidewalk. That's 268 feet roughly. Additional cost to our client, but the commission can require that, and we're amenable to that. We recognize that there are no sidewalks between Ellington Road and Veterans Memorial Park, in fact, even way beyond that. But our client is willing to begin this section of sidewalks at exceptional cost. It will be up to the town of South Windsor, of course, to build the balance of the sidewalks going to the west and to the east. We're not doing that, and this project can't afford it with 3 lots. We ask that you condition our approval of the 3 lots if you choose to approve our 3-lot re-subdivision with a condition that the design of the frontage sidewalks, as I mentioned, be worked out with the town engineer and add to the re-subdivision plans. Suzanne Choate now would like to address engineering aspects of the plan, including grade changes, erosion sedimentation control measures, utility services, sightline at the new proposed driveway, stormwater design, and overall feasibility of the engineered plan. Thank you very much.
Not sure I can talk that fast.
You don't have to.
I'm Suzanne Choate with Design Professionals, registered professional engineer in Connecticut, and I am here just to let you know that there is a slight increase in impervious area as far as stormwater is concerned. There is an existing house. The front 2 lots are basically yards already, but there is a slight increase, so we're proposing a rain garden to attenuate the flow that will be increased. There are utilities available, sanitary sewer easement, as Peter mentioned, on the westerly side that will connect to for Lot 3 and will connect to the storm sewer in the road for the frontage lots. There is also water and gas that we'll be connecting to. We have checked the sight line for the proposed driveway and the existing driveways are adequate. We are doing some regrading in order to achieve that. There is a stand of trees just east of that westerly driveway that will be eliminated, and the grade will be pulled back so that there'll be adequate sight distance there. It would happen anyway for the sidewalk, actually, now that I think of it. Erosion control, as mentioned, were placed in accordance with the 2002 erosion and sedimentation control guidelines, include silt fence and catch basin protection. And I think that's all I have. Peter, do you have anything, any closing remarks?
30 seconds. I think Glenn Martin and Suzanne Choate did a really good job designing this subdivision. We think we meet all the criteria. We're willing to do the sidewalks, which is a little unusual for these days, but we're willing to do it. Our applicant's willing to do that, and it'll be the start of something I think that potentially we just have to figure out, town's going to figure out where the other money comes from, and hopefully in not too distant future. But, and we had no members of the public here. The only person here was the gentleman with the Red Sox shirt on for the prior application, and my understanding is there are no letters opposed to the development, and we think it's a pretty good project, and we'd like to go forward, and we think it will actually upgrade this area of town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Thank you. And you should have received my report in the mail packet, so I will do a little bit abbreviated. So this is a request for a minor subdivision and special exception to section 3.22, taking an existing parcel that has a house on it and creating another frontage lot and then one interior lot on property located at 591 Pleasant Valley Road in the A20 zone. Your data table tells you how this meets the requirements for our conventional A20 zones, 20,000 square feet with 100 feet of frontage. Interior lots in the A20 zone require triple the underlining frontage, square footage, so it would have to be a 60,000 square foot lot. I believe it's around 66,000 square feet. There was some mention regarding the setback. The regulations do not require a specific front yard setback on an interior lot. What it suggests is that you look at the lot in front of it and you use the interior lot as a guide for the rear lot, which in this case would be a 40-foot setback. This particular plan is showing a 20-foot setback. Originally came in as 10 feet. I personally think it should be a minimum of 30 feet. I think there's a concern when you allow anything off of 30 feet off a property line. That's a garage, a shed, that's anything when it's a primary lot like that. I can't think of any interior lot where we've had less than a 50-foot setback from that property line. So I do have a little bit of concern with the setbacks. Again, the regulations do allow the commission to determine the setback based on the proposal. You do have special exception criteria, the general criteria of section 8.7, but you also have specific criteria related to interior lots when you're creating them. You know, you're looking at proximity to neighboring properties, restricting existing views, buffering, potential drainage or traffic impacts, driveway locations, utility capabilities, future land alternatives. We do consider Pleasant Valley Road as a minor arterial road, so they did have to do shared driveways. They have taken advantage of a shared driveway for one of the frontage lots in the interior lot and a shared driveway on the western lot where there's already an existing driveway that's being utilized. So they have met that requirement. The fire marshal has reviewed the plans and is satisfied with the emergency access to the rear lot, the width of the driveway there. These lots will be serviced by public water and public sewer. They will be connecting into sewers in the Pleasant Valley system, and Water Pollution Control Authority approval will be required. There are no wetlands on the property, so there's no wetland approval required. Erosion measures will be reviewed at the time of the individual house plans when they come in. They are proposing to keep some trees on lot number 3 and adding some additional proposal of some landscaping screening. There's 20 arborvitaes, 5 to 6 feet in height. We would request that this be incorporated into this site plan so that if this lot were to sell off, those trees would be required. As with all interior lot approvals, you are approving a site plan for this interior lot. In the event it changes drastically from what you've approved, it would require it to come back to the commission for further approval. The purpose for that is, again, this is a public hearing. Folks looking at this plan have an expectation that this is where the house is going to go. And if we change it, it's fair to have the public take another look at it. And my big thing was they took care of the sidewalks, so I'm happy to say I have no other modifications to request. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my only outstanding comment was the sidewalks. I'm glad to hear they are agreeing to the sidewalks along the frontage. I would just like the opportunity to work with design professionals to determine the exact location of that sidewalk once they lay it out. It may or may not be exactly a foot off the property line, but we'll work with you to determine the best location for that.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the public who would like to speak on this? Hearing and seeing none. I see Peter.
Yeah, just one thing. I checked with Lynn in the house, and she's built a lot of houses, by the way, over the years. And she says it's very important for her to have 68 feet. Yeah, 68 feet, the width of the house that's on north-south axis. So if we go from 20 to 30, we can't do that, the front yard setback. So, and we're having a three-car garage at the beginning of it, as you're on the northerly end going back. And she said she can't get the house that she wants to build there to work if we have less than 68 feet to work with.
Yeah, and
And
Peter.
right now, it's at 70 on our plan.
I understand that, and I'd be willing to possibly go with what you got, but one problem I have is 10 applications down the road that might get thrown back in our face that we allowed this, and now, you know, at that application, somebody wants the same thing. So that I'm just throwing that out there, that's what we're up against.
And there is no exact amount in your regs. It is
There will
discretionary
be.
in your part.
There will be.
Okay.
Won't be for this application, but I know Michelle's making a note about that, and we're gonna address that.
But we hope that you can give consideration to her house plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, well, 25? Oh, well, you can ask. I'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Flagg?
Yeah, that driveway looks to be, what, 101 feet? That driveway coming up, that's about 101 feet, I guess it says. Is that true?
The easterly driveway?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's 183 feet, just the length of the depth of the lot, so it's over that.
Are there lights? Is there a pole-mounted light in that driveway, or? I see a pole-mounted light somewhere on the schematic here.
I don't recall us having any light. The lighting is going to be a discretion of the homeowner. That's what we usually do in a subdivision. We're not proposing a light at this time. It'll be residential scale, whatever they do. I don't recall us having anything proposing a light. No light that we recall.
What drawing is that, Bill?
Huh?
What drawing number?
On CS1, in the listings, it says pole-mounted light, and I didn't know where that was.
CS1.
In the legend.
It's just in the legend. Okay. I'm sorry, that's a standard legend, but there's nothing on the plan to that effect. So we're not proposing at this time, but Lynn may very well want to have lights going up her driveway, but I'm not sure. You know.
All right, that's all I got, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dexter?
Questions?
Commissioner Bonzani? Commissioner Foley?
Yeah, Pete, on, section 8.4, item number 12, historic factors, yada, yada. Is this house subject to the demolition delay? Is there any historic value to this the Reardon home?
It's old, it's an eyesore, but yes, it is. It would be subject to demolition delay, which means you could be held up to 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. The intention is for it to go.
I know that the house has been around forever, that's, yeah,
If you want the date, I can tell you the date, it's really old.
yeah.
But it's-
What is the date?
1820.
Okay.
It reminds me of my wife's house that she was raised in on the Boston Marathon route. Those linear old houses where you had the barn in the back and then the kitchen and then
Yeah.
and the dining room and et cetera, very linear. That's what it reminds me of. And like no upstairs, can't really walk around up there, I don't think.
And then, Michelle, what, your requirement, what we're going to future, gonna go to 30 feet?
Yeah, thinking about it, maybe there's a compromise we can
Yeah.
make. Maybe the house can stay where it is, and then the remaining setbacks go to 30 feet so that accessory structures don't get any closer.
Could you compromise to 25 feet for this application?
Well, she wants to do a house at 68, and right now we have it, you can accommodate up to 70 with a 20 feet, but if we drop it down, we can only go like 2 more feet.
22 feet then.
What Michelle's suggesting, most of it being at 30 feet with the exception of just where that house is.
That's the most important.
In fact, behind the 2 lots, I think it would be a 30, because what's prevailing is that corner of the lot to the east of our easterly driveway, if I may go forward here.
Yeah.
This is what does it. It swings out. We can maintain 30 along here. It's from here is the problem.
Okay,
Is it?
all good.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I got.
We'd appreciate it.
Okay, Commissioner LeBlanc?
Thank you. I don't have any comment. I'm just sort of reading everything here. Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner?
Yeah, so there's a town easement, is that a sewer easement?
Yeah,
On the-
there's
on
a
the
cross-country sewer that goes through there.
Goes to
Now,
Parkview.
it's actually going under a
Yeah,
paved,
it serves Parkview, the drive to the south of us. It
And-
goes through, cuts through, yeah.
goes under this driveway, is that a paved driveway?
It's not now, it's gravel. It will be paved for our lot up until just beyond our driveway, if I may come forward.
Yeah, I guess,
We're gonna be paving just beyond, and it's gravel beyond that.
so, I mean, does even though I'm on WPCA, does WPCA care about having its sewer under a paved driveway, private driveway?
They're not terrified of it. It's something they should look at. We'd have to look at the existing easement agreement. It may have to be modified. Sometimes, in such instances where sewers have been under pavement, WPCA said, look, if we have to maintain this sewer and dig it up, we're not gonna repair the pavement. We're not responsible for the pavement. We're only responsible for the sewer. I could see them having that discussion and clarifying that when they look at this application.
Yeah, we have to go to WPCA, and
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
resolve that at the time.
Do like a hold harmless agreement where if they ever had to tear up the blacktop?
I have every expectation that that's what the WPCA will do. I think they invariably do that.
So why can't, I mean, your house is 30 feet from these Lot 1 and Lot 2. I was going to suggest resizing Lot 1 and Lot 2, but that isn't the problem. The problem is this neighbor on the east, right? And for some reason, the house can't be slid over to the,
You mean in terms of setback for the rear lot?
yeah,
Yeah, it's an exceptionally deep lot to the right of us.
yeah.
And so it juts out and you get 30 feet going around that line, and that's what prevails. It's not the other behind lots 1 and 2, it's the other.
I got that. But
So we're going to be more than 30 feet behind lots 1 and 2 no matter what, even with our 20-foot line we have.
Yeah, but my question is,
Yeah.
why can't you move the house west 10 feet?
Well, you want to go ahead?
Yes,
Engineering
we
issues.
actually did look at that. It makes the fire truck maneuvering a little bit more difficult because they have to turn the corner. So this was the easiest way for access. And I do think it looks less stacked because it is not behind the house in front of it. So that's why we chose the location we did.
Now, if we were to decide that we want you to move the house, would that end the project for you?
One more point, it would reduce the backyard, so a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But, we worked with the town staff. The fire marshal has, this is a 18-foot wide driveway going all the way back to accommodate fire apparatus at the request. Yes, it was Walt Summers involved. Right? Yeah, Walt Summers. So we've got it oriented so you go straight back to the garage. We start pushing it over, then, yeah, as you mentioned, fire apparatus. So we'd like to keep it where it is. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all I had, thank you.
And it is discretionary on your part, what that distance is.
Okay.
We'd be glad to make it 30 feet everywhere except for that one little spot.
Or you'll come and ask for it.
Did you see
Thank you.
tree? You see a landscape plan? You see a landscape plan? Peter, step forward, please.
Yes, sir.
Landscaping, our street tree easement.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably part of public improvements in the town. I didn't see, actually, street tree planting.
That's part of your subdivision regulations, if I recall.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have it specified in
Yeah,
your
it's
subdivision
right
regs.
here. Street tree planting. What is, help me out, Peter. Oh, it's right there. Zokova Serta Village Green. What the heck is that?
Of course, we told Glenn, don't hang around because Pleasant Valley School is ahead of us, so we said you don't have to come tonight. Glenn Martin, our landscape architect on this, sorry. What's it say?
That's a fairly common street tree these days. Kevin probably is familiar with them. Commissioner Foley. Zokova?
Village Green Zircova.
Yeah.
It's really not a street tree. Zocova, it's a big street.
You want us to switch it?
Are you,
How about London Plain Tree?
well, how
Those get
big is
big.
that? How big's the canopy? Well, the point,
London Plain Tree will get huge.
yeah, I'm not looking for something big. I'm
There
looking
power
for
lines on that
like
side?
a dogwood, flowering dogwood or something.
No.
All these power lines and stuff.
Can we look for a recommendation from our street tree warden on that?
Our landscape architect
Sure.
will talk to your tree warden and work it out.
Okay.
And Michelle, if you'd like to look at that, consider changing that.
The other issue I have, and it's more with our regulations than with your application, but the planting of the trees, a lot of times those big trees disrupt the sidewalks. And if it's only a 10-foot street tree easement, if we had a smaller tree, maybe the roots wouldn't be upheaving the sidewalks,
The type of tree, I mean, you got a taproot going down some of them and
Well,
others, they spread out.
We try and encourage the trees to be moved towards the back of the easement.
Right.
So we give as much room between the tree and the sidewalk as possible.
So we'll review that with the tree warden and
Okay.
the town staff about the selection of the type of tree and also its exact location.
Fair enough.
Glad to do that.
I don't have anything else. Commissioners, any reason to keep the public hearing open? Hearing, seeing none. All those, take a motion to close it, close the public hearing? Town staff okay with that?
Yep.
Applicants all set?
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to close public hearing. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Where are we in our agenda? I know it's getting late. Michelle, are we under time constraints for our new business?
No, because you just closed your public hearings, you got
Right,
65 days.
35
to act.
days or whatever?
65 days, yep.
65 days, okay. What about number 3, the referral? I think,
We can either do that now or we can wait 2 weeks. It's up to you. It's not, I don't think it's urgent from what I understand.
oh, that one just came up, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay, so we got time. Okay. We either can do a motion to adjourn, or I can just declare the meeting closed. Okay, we're past our thing, our time limit, so we're adjourned.